7 o'clock, 7:01 on Wednesday, May 27th, and I'm calling this meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board to order. My name is Chris LaValle, and I'm the chair of the board. Tonight, we will be following the posted agenda. The meeting tonight is both in person and via Zoom. If Zoom fails at any point in the meeting, we'll continue in person. The meeting is being televised live and recorded from Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and on YouTube. So first item on the agenda is public input. It will be limited to statements from the public relating to any issues within our jurisdiction, but are not the current subject of a pending official public hearing before us. Public comment on any pending public hearings will only be heard during those public hearings. So is there any member of the public who wishes to speak tonight? Come up to the podium and please state your name and address for the record.
I am Mary Ellen Hyder. I live at 29 Chamberlain Road. Basically, tonight, my husband and I, Joseph, we are here to speak to the board about an issue that we're having with the commercial property located at 12 Kidder Road that abuts our property. We've been before this board in the past, but many of you are new and probably don't know the history of our problem. However, we've had a boundary issue with the owners of 12 Kidder Road. In March of 2025, after 8 long years, we were scheduled for a court hearing regarding a boundary dispute. And basically, the judge told both parties that this issue did not belong in his court and to settle out of court. And the reason that it also took so long was because of COVID and constantly being bumped. So my husband and I, with the help of our lawyer, entered into a settlement agreement in April of 2025 with Loop Real Estate, who is the owners of 12 Kidder Road. As part of the settlement agreement, the boundary lines were to be surveyed, again, by both parties, surveyors, with the parties present, and parties agreed to the boundary lines. To date, that's never happened. Upon agreement, Loop would install granite bounds marking the boundaries of the properties. To date, that has happened. Per Loop Real Estate, they stated we broke the agreement. We did not break the agreement. As we started doing what we needed to do as part of our agreement, they issued a cease and desist against us in May of 2025. After receiving a cease and desist, nothing took place in or around the disputed area till April of 2026. On or around April 10th of 2026, an email was issued to our lawyer stating that since we broke the agreement, they would be clearing the area between their property and ours and would be working in the disputed area and for us to not disturb or talk to their contractors. Our lawyer spoke with us and drafted a letter back to them by April 14th. As far as we're concerned, they broke the agreement by giving us a cease and desist order, when we were fulfilling the agreement to remove earth material as agreed. On April 21st, 2026, the contractor showed up and started clearing the area. When I went out to speak with the contractor, he opened his door of the machine, stated he did not talk with me, and that the police were on their way. It turns out there was a police officer on the Chamberlain Road side of the Hyder property and in the cul-de-sac. Per the officer, he was hired by Loop Real Estate as a detail. He came to talk with my husband and I in our backyard. John Begini, who's Loop Real Estate, told the officer he had a court order, which there was no court order given. We explained what was happening, and my husband told the officer that we would provide a copy of the settlement agreement, which we did, and suggested he ask them for paperwork. He said he would get a copy of their paperwork and would submit to his boss. We called our lawyer, who's Mr. Douglas Hauser, and he spoke to us, but said he was out of the country at the time, and for us to document what we could, and we would deal with it when he returned. We took numerous photos, and that is why we're here this evening. Since this time, Loop Real Estate has taken it upon themselves to remove the temporary white vinyl fence and moved it to their surveyor stakes that they say is where the stakes should be. And so now the installation of the fence to us is unacceptable. They took it upon themselves to move it themselves. They've broken the caps off the tops of the vinyl fence. They did not hire professionals. They have put poles in the ground, and they're too short. they placed plastic buckets in the ground and stuck the poles in the bucket and filled the buckets with cement. And I have photos, I have Evan, he can show them for us. And I'm saying to you guys, would you accept a contractor doing something like that along your boundary lines? I don't think it's acceptable. And then also between May 5th and 7th, Loop Real Estate, we've seen them driving in. They come in with machinery, they come in with golf carts in the disputed area, and they dropped off trees to be installed. Now, as part of the order of conditions, we were to get 2 rows of arborvitaes prior to construction starting. Well, because of our boundary dispute, we had to come before the board to get clarification back in 22, 23. We were put off several months. We finally got them to come in, and we agreed at the time for 1 row of arborvitaes until the boundary dispute was resolved. So the trees they've now brought in, they're these tiny little skinny trees. They've kind of put them in between the existing trees that they put in a few years ago. And according to the order of conditions, the trees should be 2.5 inches in caliper and 6 to 8 feet tall. And we're not seeing any of that. So that's where we're at today. And so I've provided some photos. We had a professional come in because we're not allowed to step on their land or anything like that. So Evan is now showing a row there. The row right behind the white fence, that's just an area where they've designated, I guess, so they can walk back and forth and do what they need for their trees. The shed is ours. The area in front of the shed is our garden. We haven't done anything with it this year because we're not exactly sure what their plans are or if they've sprayed in that area. We used to have grapevines and stuff in that area. It's all gone. So that's why we're here this evening. We don't know what our next recourse should be, but we don't feel what they have planted and put in its place is acceptable, nor is the fence. Buckets in the ground with poles holding the fence, cemented in. I don't know if it's eventually going to fall over or not. So.
Okay. Thank you. Evan, do you have anything to add?
I'll just say the hiders have been intimate with me a couple times over the last series of months. They've provided some initial photos before this official submission. What I've indicated to the hiders is what I'll say to the board. The town is not a party to the settlement agreement.
Right.
I've assured the hiders that this project be treated like any other project, whereby if and when they request either partial or full occupancy, that triggers submission of partial or full as-built. DPW does a verification of those related to stormwater. I do a site inspection on behalf of the planning board to ensure compliance with above-ground features, landscaping, lighting, parking lot striping, signage, things of that nature. And then David Kuntz, through the conservation, also has a permit on a portion of this property. So as of right now, it's still, I guess, an active construction site, even though they're substantially complete with much of the work. I have not been out there recently, and I don't intend to go out there until some sort of occupancy is requested. When that is requested, again, I'll bring the plans, document quantity and location of landscape material, location of fencing. We do not inspect for quality of craftsmanship unless, let's say, the fence is like leaning or, there are missing or broken pieces. And then as we all know, something can be in compliance one day, and then a week or two later, it falls out of compliance. So as the board knows, and many people in the community know, unfortunately, that process requires in a butter to, notify town hall of an alleged violation, and that triggers town staff going out and, doing an inspection and doing follow-up and enforcement if necessary.
So is this an active property?
I have photos of the area, aerial-wise, if you'd like to look what Kidder Road looks like, because I don't know where a lot of you folks live in town. I gave Evan a bunch of photos if he wants to. They're in the aerial.
So if it's an active property, then how would they need an occupancy permit?
That's the
It's
top of
an
their
active
building.
construction site. There's no occupancy on it right now.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
building, the building is up, it's been up for 2 years. Why it's taken them so long? They came before this board in September of 2016 and got their approval. They wound up letting the permits lapse. They had to come back in 2019. And that's our backyard that overlooks. Now, when you go to the back of their property and look, there's the retention pond, there's the first row of arborvitaes that are all huge, and then it looks wonderful from their side of the property, but then you look at our side of the property and it doesn't look that great. I mean, all we see is, Evan, if you could go to, I think one of them might have a picture of our backyard. It might be on the PDFs. That's the area we're responsible for clearing up, and they gave us a cease to, we live right next to Route 495 going northbound. So we have 495 on one side. We have them behind us. When we first bought our property, we had a 100-foot buffer, and there was nothing but arborvitae, so you couldn't even see in there. When they went to develop this land, they came up to the property line. There was a covenant, but the covenant had expired. In order to stay away from the property line, I guess is what I want to say. And so we have that. And then on the other side of us, we have a 40B development that was Hillside Gardens. So, I mean, we've been at this property 29 years, and the amount of change, and, as my husband was alluding a little earlier, watching you guys, and you're going over new zoning laws and changing, the CB light and this, and introducing commercial closer to residential. I mean, we live it every day. And unfortunately, they're just not nice neighbors to us. They never have been. They don't want to talk to us. When we see other developments that come up and the developers are at least willing to listen to the neighbors and work with them, we've never had this here. And we are the only home impacted by this. My house, I'm at the end of Chamberlain. It happens to sit farther back from the road near this property. None of my other neighbors are impacted, just us. So every time we come before you, I don't have a neighborhood behind me. We're just one family, and it just gets very frustrating.
Do we have any indication of when the occupancy permit might?
I think it's sooner, sooner than later.
Okay.
I would expect. I mean, I don't think there's much more work to be done out there, is the sense I get.
Okay. Because there's really not much we can do until that occupancy permit is requested. And then that triggers the inspections and as-built.
What about the condition about having the arborvitaes a certain height when they were doing the,
Yeah, so
Can we
as
do
you know,
anything with
all of the
that?
plans have specifications for size of planting. So I'll literally, pull the file out
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
walk the site, and if it calls for, 6 to 8 foot at planting, then, that's what's required.
So we're not a part of the settlement agreement, but after the settlement agreement was determined, as I recall, both parties came back and requested that we sort of ratify or
I think
accept.
that was prior to settlement court proceedings. There was like
It
an
was?
interim,
Okay.
plan that allowed a temporary relocation of a temporary fence, as I recall.
Well, all I recall is that is that both parties were in agreement
Yes.
about what they had submitted to the board to
Mhm.
ratify. Okay, so those are the plans that are going to be used to,
No.
okay.
No, those plans, what you were talking about are the temporary conditions while the litigation was
Okay,
being
okay.
determined.
Yeah,
And then the final plans are what Evan would use.
okay, okay.
So last year, when we were in the process of doing what we needed to do as part of the settlement agreement, we had a wall down our driveway that had an earth berm behind it. Well, they own a sliver of the land that ran behind that wall. And they said, well, you have to get that dirt out of there. That's our land. So as part of, during the settlement agreement, we said, well, listen, it's residential. Evan has told them numerous times, you can't do anything with it. Plus, there's a water main that comes down Chamberlain Road. My house, actually, it comes up that, there's an easement with the water district. Our house is attached to that water line. So we don't want anyone driving in there. And Evan has told them, it's residential, you can't do anything with it. We offered to buy it, they said no. We asked for an easement, they said no. So to kind of settle a lot of this, my husband said, let's just take down our stone wall, we'll rebuild it, and we'll take the earth out. So as we were starting to do that last year, we only had 45 days to do that. We started, and about a week or two before our deadline, they gave us a cease and desist to stop. And our lawyer's like, well, why? We never got an answer why. Never spoke to us again. And to this day, we still don't even know if that cease and desist, So my side of my property along my driveway and everything looks terrible, and it's just left that way because we're not supposed to be doing anything.
So I think at this point, all that we can do is wait for the occupancy permit request, and then Evan will inspect based on the plans, and then if things are not up to the plans, they will have to redo things.
What are the time limits on approving an occupancy permit request?
I'm not sure what you're.
Giving one.
Well, somebody comes in
requesting one.
and says, give us an occupancy request.
We, from the time they ask for occupancy, could be upwards of a couple weeks for all
Okay,
departments.
so there is time when the occupancy permit is requested. There will be a planning board meeting that could take place before that is actually granted. What I'm worried about is the thing gets granted without us being able to have a look.
Yeah, I mean, certain, like as I indicated, my entrance to the subject property, 12 Kidder, will be based upon an official request for action.
Okay,
I'm not suggesting that board members can go on 12 Kidder, but I think board members with the permission of the Hiders can visit the Hiders property. I'll forward all these, can I keep the thumb drive? So
Yeah,
can
can I
forward
come
these
back
out?
and get it, though,
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
another day?
So I'll forward
Okay.
out these photos to board members. You can get a better sense. The complicating issue is the settlement agreement, and apparently there are provisions within the agreement that the parties disagree to what extent they've been complied with.
So I have a question. The settlement agreement was done as part of mediation as requested by the judge? Okay, and when you have a settlement agreement that's arrived at in mediation, who's the governing body for the settlement agreement?
If someone's aggrieved, I would think it's probably the judge.
Who made them make it, even though he didn't have anything to do with the making?
Right.
So that would have to go back to
Yep.
the court.
If a
Right,
party's
it would have to go
aggrieved.
back to court. And right now, in the
The
past
parties
year.
agree that they don't agree?
Well, aggrieved, if they're aggrieved.
Well, I don't,
No, right, that's why I think you're hearing the Hiders say that they're engaged with their counsel who was involved in the settlement agreement.
I mean, there must be some governing body, and it's certainly not us,
Correct.
that manages a settlement agreement. And how do you
If we
mitigate?
truly want to go back, at this point in time, the last year has been very trying on myself and my husband. My husband's been very ill and is recovering. And so basically, we just want this finished and done. You know, what was supposed to happen was our surveyor and their surveyor was supposed to get together. All parties were supposed to be
Yeah,
there.
you said that.
That never happened.
Right.
Our surveyor has since passed away. So to try to get somebody new involved, I said to my husband, I'm just done, it's,
Right, so.
we just want resolution.
So just to that point, in lieu of the hiders going back to the court system, I've assured the hiders, and what I'm telling the board tonight is that the original planning board approved plans will be the plan of record. Those are the ones that I think the hiders understand is what will be 100% compliant as part of occupancy.
Yeah, but with the, does that still just deal with the dispute on where the boundary lines is?
So again, I've spoken with the hiders. In lieu of them continuing the litigation of the settlement agreement, the only plan of record that the planning board and the town has is that original plan. So I've indicated to the hiders to what extent are you comfortable with the location of the fence as it is installed? If this proceeds in accordance with the planning board approval, then it's assumed that the new fence is installed in the appropriate location. There's no indication from the hiders that they want to, revisit the settlement
Not after
agreement.
waiting 8
Right,
years to go to
right.
court.
Right, so my understanding, and I think what we're discussing today is, as this proceeds, it will be the original planning board approval that is the plan of record. So everything from the fence line into the subject property is what will be inspected.
But
Then
why
you'll-
wouldn't it be the old fence line that they just moved arbitrarily?
Because that was, my understanding is that was what was disputed and settled. The only way for that white fence to be relocated is for the hiders to revisit the settlement agreement.
And to hire a surveyor and resurvey everything, and
Didn't the other
Correct.
company move it?
at this point, though, if they're comfortable with the plans, that's what we're gonna go with.
When were the original plans approved? How long ago was that?
September of 2016.
So
It's
how are the
almost
plans
10
still valid?
years.
What kind of business is it gonna be?
We don't know. They've got
Multiple-
20 bay
it's multiple
garages.
bays.
So we do need to keep moving, but I think at this point, Evan, once that is triggered, you'll do the inspection, you'll bring it back to the board.
I can update the board.
Yeah, please do. And if there's anything that isn't aligned, we'll take a look at it from
Yeah.
the board's perspective.
That's all we can ask.
Thank
But
you.
we wanted to bring it to your attention because also we see all the new zoning that you're trying to put in.
Well, we're
and-
trying to prevent things like this happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so my suggestion would be, you make the commercial at least 50 to 75 feet away and really nice screening, not these little rinky-dink trees. It hasn't done us well at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
All right, any other members?
Can I just say something
Yes.
very brief? I promise.
If you could just state your name
My
and
name is
address for the
Joseph
record.
Hyder, same address, 29 Chamberlain Road. When Evan does share the photos, you'll see the fence is not only up and down, but it's crooked like this. The agreement was they'd have a fence company, and they did it themselves. The fence is about a foot, foot and a half off the ground, and there's a retention pond on their side of the fence. And I said to the wife, well, we're gonna have to do something because any waterfowl or whatever gets in there, which there's always something, skunks or whatever, they're gonna start coming into our yard under the fence. Now, I had a coyote the other night, came down the driveway, was back and forth, and I think it went under the fence because there's enough room. You could lay down and roll under. And I've been in construction for 60 years. I've worked in 26 towns. I've done site work, septic, water, sewer, drainage, paving, excavating, trucking, you name it, I've done it all. gas work and everything. I've never seen such poor quality work. But that's, you'll see it in the photos,
Okay,
you know, as you look through.
all right.
If you have any questions on them, you're welcome to call us and
We will.
try to fill you in, but they're pretty obvious.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And they also took out a wall. We agreed to a small portion. They took the whole thing out. And when they dug by the arborvitaes, which they weren't supposed to touch, you'll see one of the photos, the arborvitaes are brown about this high right now. They ripped all the roots out. That'll be another situation for us to deal with.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak? Anyone on Zoom? All right. Moving on, we have the Lady Slipper Lane public hearing with a request for continuation to June 10th. So I will entertain a motion.
I move that we continue the Lady Slipper Lane hearing until June 10th.
Motion by Mike,
Seconded.
second, who said that? Marcy? Second by Marcy. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
What do we have on the 10th now, Evan?
That's the only
It's the only hearing.
regulatory item.
Okay.
And Riverneck, right?
Yep, Riverneck will be on the 10th.
Yeah.
All right, Community Development Director's Report.
Just two quick items. I'm in the process of working with NIMCOG to submit the second grant for the second phase of the managed growth strategy. That's due by June 3rd. The second item is on June 10th. Departments will be doing a preliminary meeting with the mall project. This is a different concept than what was previously submitted for a public hearing. Same applicant, same general location along Chelmsford Street, but an entirely different project, different scope and scale. If that goes well, that should set the stage for a submission at some point. So I'll keep the board updated on that. That's all I have.
I would just add that Evan had suggested in the past that, you know, it's an informative meeting to go to, and I went to one, several of us have been to them. I mean, if you've never been to one and you're interested, this might be a good one to, I mean, you don't really have anything to say, but it's worth seeing it go around the room and see what all the various departments have for thoughts and concerns.
This will be June 10th? What time?
2:30?
Any objection to having a planning board member?
No, I assume John will be sitting in.
That's true.
Usually the manager sits in on those meetings.
We nominate John, there we go.
I think in years past, we've invited it up to 2 members. So if 2 members want to,
I'd be inclined.
You'd be interested?
Yep.
Okay. So Mike and John?
What time is that?
2:30.
2:30.
I'm
all
gonna
I
take
have.
that off of my calendar then.
Hmm?
I'm gonna take it off of my calendar.
Did you
All
have it
right.
on yours?
I just put it in.
Oh.
Liaison updates. Anyone with
Nothing here.
updates?
I
It's
just
been quiet,
just wanted to mention that
too quiet.
I did send an email to 8 member towns that belong to the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, just asking that we had talked about their definitions on indoor and outdoor contract yards and just anything that they had. And I said, you know, if the planning board member couldn't answer it or didn't have specific information, if they could forward it along to their community development director or zoning officer if they didn't have a community development director. But I received replies back from Tewksbury, Tingsboro, and Dunstable. And the reason I didn't forward them along, there's really, the definitions like that we're working on that you developed, that they're much more specific. They're really sort of vague, so I didn't think they would be helpful. And one town, Tewksbury, allows it in two different zones. They allow contract yards in just two zones only, but they have totally different terminology than what we have, so unfortunately, I don't have a lot to report on that, but
Okay.
just the 3 out of the 8 did respond.
Thank you. Anything else for liaisons? I do have quick updates from the Conservation Commission. They did also continue Lady Slipper Lane. They had a hearing for request for determination of applicability for Lighthouse School in 25 Wellman. That was before us a while ago. They're adding a sport court to their landscaping. So basketball court, just off of the playground. So that went before the board. And then pretty much everything else was continued and no major hearings, so. All right. Any other updates? All right, we'll move on to new business. First item on new business is data center zoning overview. I know that there's a lot of public interest in this one, so I'm going to preamble this one a little bit. So the process that we're following for all of these zoning changes or potential zoning changes is the process that we followed for a number of other prior ones. We have an initial discussion at the board to talk about what direction we might want to take, how we want to approach it. We have 1 or 2 people go off and come up with a first draft to present to the board. We have an informal few meetings to talk through the draft until we're happy with that initial draft. And then what we will do for all of these zoning changes, once we get closer to fall town meeting, is have a public hearing where the public can speak to us on the proposal. We can make adjustments if needed, and go from there to town meeting for the final proposal. So these are just discussions of ideas at this point to come up with an initial draft that can and probably will change over time as we get to the public comment. But as we've seen with most of these topics, if people do want to send us comments or input throughout the process, even through the informal sessions that we have now, people are more than welcome to email the planning board with their thoughts and ideas. So I just wanted to provide that overview before we get into the data center zoning discussion, which seems to be a little bit more, have public interest than some of the other topics that we were discussing already. All right, with that, Joel is the one that developed this initial draft for discussion, so let's hand it off to Joel.
Sure, thank you. So first I wanted to start off with why is it that we should consider data center zoning? We had some of that discussion already in our previous meeting, but one of the reasons is growing need for data centers due to generative AI, and that's something associated with actual technology, the chips themselves, AI chips that are different than typical chips, generate a lot of heat. And so there's something unique about generative AI, places where generative AI is occurring versus sort of what you would consider normal server farm kind of activity. So that's one thing, is the technology is changing, and so that gives rise to ways in which that's being handled. Many municipalities fail to address data centers in their zoning codes, so including in Massachusetts, that everyone is now starting to wake up that we need to do something about it. It typically is interpreted as being in light industrial, and the way it is now is it's up to the zoning officer to try to figure out, is this something that's allowed in this zone or not? So we want to be a little more proactive in that sense to better define it. This next slide, the large utility-intensive facilities don't neatly fit into traditional commercial or industrial land use categories. I'm going to modify that somewhat because in looking at it, and this is why I think we want to be thoughtful about how we define it, and then also thoughtful in terms of how we restrict it. And that is because there's a lot of things that are called data centers, and we had an alert resident who notified us that there are data centers in Chelmsford already, but you just don't know it because they aren't noticeable. And that's because I don't think that they're necessarily generative AI places. So, but in general, and just another reason is because Lowell currently is reexamining their zoning. There's other places that are looking at zoning. So what are the characteristics of data centers? Just trying to get a handle on what is a data center. And it can really range. It can range between hyperscale facilities, which I don't think we're going to see, which requires a large amount of land use and so forth. So those are typically occurring in other places in the south, southwest, so forth and so on, where there's more land. But then also there are smaller centers, co-location centers, and then edge and micro data centers. So, for example, the one in Lowell is not considered a particularly large data center, but we know it is, in fact, impacting the neighborhood because of its proximity to the residential area. And so, so there's basically ranges of things. And then what are the kinds of things that we would be concerned about restricting for data centers? And that is having to do with backup generators, both because of the noise that they emit, but also because of storage of fuel for them and so forth. The cooling and water use, in Lowell, they're using cooling towers, and then also noise and aesthetic controls because of, not just due to the generators, but also due to exterior mechanical equipment and so forth and so on. So those are the kinds of things that are generating impacts that we want to consider. So there's two definitions I found. There's actually more, but these are two that were sort of, I thought, kind of neatly descriptive. So I would say take a look at these. If there's some that you like, some aspects of one you like another, we don't have to go through this today. We're not going to like start hashing out definitions or anything. It's just to show there are some definitions out there already that we can consider. So if you want to go to the next slide. So first I want to identify what are issues that we want to look at that are related to zoning, and then what are zoning approaches to those issues. I want to separate those ideas. So I sort of already hit on some of these ones, the backup generators, and there's various aspects of that in terms of air quality, pollution control, noise, size, on-site fuel storage, cooling, sort of how much water does that require, what kinds of effects are there, like mist, which is what Lowell's experiencing, towers, so large physical objects that you can see, utilities, both in terms of water and power, those are significant issues. And I don't know how that particularly plays for us in terms of power or in water, in terms of how we would determine what are, like, is that something that we want to have a handle on or not? Because I don't know if we can specify a capacity. You know, we specify sewer capacity, yes, we do, but neither of those other two are within the town's control. So I don't, that's one question I have, is I don't know if we can put any kind of capacity restraint on that. Exterior mechanical equipment, structure, this is one thing that was interesting, is because there tend to be very few employees at data centers, the structures themselves tend to have very small and few windows. And so that's obviously, from an aesthetic point of view, that's something that we would want to consider. And then also, this is not an issue, but I should identify that the ITE trip generator, they do have a land use code for data centers. They do have a traffic estimate for data centers, is very small. So it's basically negligible, and that makes sense. So for the Lowell example, which is the Markley Data Center, it's a 14-acre parcel. It's light industrial zoned, and it is surrounded by the Sacred Heart neighborhood. There are it's a 352,000 square foot data center. So this is probably, I think, what was, yeah, it is big. It is big.
It's the old Prince Macaroni factory,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it
that's what
is. It is. I think this is 50% larger than the, because how much was the warehouse? That was
Or by Lala
240
Huh?
something.
By Lala Shore?
Yeah, so this is like
By UMass?
50% larger or
No,
something.
by the
No.
old, the trolley restaurant, pizza place.
Oh,
The
okay.
Prince Macaroni,
Yeah.
Prince.
So the old Prince restaurant,
Yeah.
stuff like that, so it's right up
Got
off
it.
that street.
So for that data center, they have 27 diesel backup generators. They store 160,000 gallons of diesel fuel on site, and they have 16 cooling towers. So the reason I do this is just so that we can get some sense of the ratio of these things to the size of the data center.
Is that a co-location data center? Do you know?
I don't know.
What
I
was the
do know
question,
that
Chris?
originally it started out that they were going to be providing sort of like a server service, if you need some additional computing, so forth and so on, but then they migrated into the generative AI,
Okay.
and that's when it became an issue,
Okay.
is when they started.
So it
doing
started
that.
as a co-location
I think so, and then it.
and is
then
expanding into.
It's expanded
Gen AI.
because of obviously it's very lucrative right now to
Demand,
get that
yeah.
sort of
Okay.
work, yeah.
What are they using for their cooling towers?
Water, I believe.
Water?
Yeah. So a number of restrictions and I looked at a number of different ways in which different zoning approaches that there are. And certainly one of the big ones they have is setbacks. So anywhere between 500 and 1,000 feet from residential. Height limits, of course, screening, those are sort of typical zoning things that we have. Restrictions, potential, and types of systems. So we could, for example, in Chris Bowman's letter, which I didn't read thoroughly, but she did say that we just say not allow any kind of an open loop system. And so that's certainly something that we could specify as certain types of systems that are allowed and certain types of systems that are not
Between
allowed.
open loop and a closed loop?
Closed loop, at least, I think it isn't, I think the open loop is that you're essentially running it to the cooling tower and then it's evaporating off. And so you're having water leaving the system that way, as opposed to closed. I don't think you have those kinds of evaporating kinds of things. And apparently there are different technologies, so it's not like, having water cooling towers is the only way that problem can be solved. But I don't know what are the relative costs or the inclinations or anything like that. So that I don't know. But then also noise attenuation and limits, then I think we have some feel for that because of the car wash, where we thought through that. We do have environmental protection standards and so forth. And then in terms of approaches, there were different approaches. Some were to have a by right, others by special permit, perhaps depending on size, or to restrict it to areas that can support high utility loads. And then also whether you would go with an existing district, whether you create a new district. Some people created a new district, whether you have an overlay on an existing district. So there's sort of different approaches to how we might actually implement the kinds of restrictions that we want to put on. And I thought Mansfield, this is one that they just passed the zoning bylaw on the 5th at town meeting. So this is the first town in the state that has passed a data center bylaw, to my understanding. But the important thing to keep in mind with Mansfield is that they have a water department and they have essentially a utility. So those things are within Mansfield's control, and therefore that is something that the basis for their control is on what capacity where they can support, right? I don't know that we necessarily would do it that way. So they base it on megawatts. So they have a 3-tier system. If you go up to 2 megawatts being what they sort of consider to be their capacity, then 2 to 10 megawatts, and then greater than 10 megawatts. And I'm not exactly sure why they created tiers 2 and 3, because neither of them are allowed. So I don't know if they're looking to expand it. I don't know. Anyway, that's the way they did it. That's fine. And so then basically anybody who's seeking a special permit, you have to submit engineering reports and so forth and so on. So there's a process that someone would have to go through to do that. So.
Like,
Go
for
ahead.
us for Chelmsford, which doesn't have a municipal electric plant, I don't know that there's any way for us to think about the impact of the various sizes on at some point,
Yep.
if there's enough data centers in New England area that's serviced by whatever, Eversource and National Grid, then the kilowatt price is gonna go up if the capacity isn't able to be expanded. So there are constraints, but they're kind of the free rider kind of.
They're not
like-
constraints Chelmsford has any control over.
Right, exactly.
Although some might argue that, well, okay, there are going to be impacts to, if you allow these things, there are potentially going to be impacts to utility customers
Right,
because of the infrastructure that's likely
Right.
to be shared among all the
Right.
utility customers. And so therefore, should we restrict it anticipating that
Right.
that would help them? But that's hard to put a number on. We need specifics, we
Yeah.
need criteria.
And we would have to
So-
talk to town council about that to
Yeah,
see if we
yeah.
legally can
Yeah.
restrict if
Yeah.
it's not a direct impact on our
Yeah.
utilities.
Under-
And
What about our
Town.
water? Like, you would, like,
it's not town water. They're independent water districts.
well, yeah, no, okay, not town water, but independent water districts, and we have 3. And then, is that gonna run into a problem with enough water for the residents?
Probably, but
Let's say we're already
But
in a
the
level 3 water
issue-
ban in this area.
the issue is that they're not town utilities. So what Joel is saying is that Mansfield restricted based on their town's ability to provide the infrastructure.
Yeah.
If it were sewer-related,
Right.
that would be a different story. But
Right.
because,
But can't we
The-
work with the water departments? Like, is there a way to
but we
work
may
with
not
it?
have a legal basis for being able to do it. We'd have to check with town
We have to
council.
I mean,
check with town
I mean, we
council. There should
could,
be somebody
But
to-
what we would actually implement has to be something that is within our control.
Yeah,
Review.
And so we could do something simple, like we do a lot of things, is square footage. So that would be one. Another one would be that we don't necessarily use square footage, but we use the things that are of concern for us, like generators, towers, and so forth
We
and
do
so
all
on.
of the above.
Or all of the above, yeah.
Or we just define
But those
it.
are the knobs we can turn.
The hooks,
But
yeah.
but we don't have power.
We
within
can
our
also look at primary use versus an accessory use.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we can, like, define it and bring to town meeting 2 options, like what, with us putting it in certain zoning and giving them if that fails, then we have the option of just defining it and putting no across the town.
Can I throw an entirely different opinion out here?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should limit the impact, not the use. There clearly is impact to this thing, and it's fascinating to watch the development of the idea of the data center. It spills a lot of heat.
Yeah.
That may be something that we want to regulate,
Like
if we could.
we're trying to get away from heat islands.
Yeah,
in
right,
other
so there may
areas
be,
of-
but what we should be doing is regulating the heat, not regulating the use. I mean, if you were to come up with another industrial use that used the same amount of power, that had the same number of employees, which is almost none, had the same traffic impact, which is almost none, but had the same gigantic bill. If you had something that was an entirely different use that had the same characteristics, which you very easily could have, I think you could put together images of a chemical plant that would look very much like a data center in terms of its pollution and its heat. Wouldn't you want to regulate that the same way? So and how we go about this, I don't know, but I'm hesitant to regulate the use and only the use.
Well, I think it would be very similar to how we're potentially trying to deal with the contractor yard topic.
Right, but there we have a clear, there's a visual image problem, there's the noise and traffic problem. In some ways, a contractor yard has bigger problems than a data center. I mean,
Not necessarily,
well, not necessarily. Should we limit the
More
amount of
subtle
heat that's
adverse
spilled into the
impacts.
atmosphere? Maybe we should.
It's adverse impacts that are more difficult to measure, and in some ways, therefore
Oh,
more
it's very
subtle.
easy to measure. They know
Temperature
exactly how
output?
much heat they're dumping.
Oh,
You can put a number on it. You look at the power bill coming in, and I guarantee you, all of it's going out as heat.
But one of the challenges is that zoning is based on the use. So we have to tie,
We have to define something.
we have to
Yeah.
define the use based on the impacts. And I
Well,
think,
I think the use could simply be industrial, and then we limit
but I
the,
disagree with that
Okay.
because there are plenty of, like someone pointed out, there are data centers now in Chelmsford
Yeah.
as part of office buildings.
Right,
Those are data centers.
yep.
But they're not the standalone,
They're not the big AI-driven
Yeah.
It's a secondary-
giant that
it's a
we're
secondary
worried,
use.
actually worried
Yeah.
about.
they're
It's a
second.
secondary use, so that, I mean, I would be inclined to be much more liberal with a secondary use.
Right.
Regulation.
I mean, if the secondary use spit out the same amount of heat, spit out the same amount of mist, and had the same number of noisy diesel generators, would we want to limit it less because it was a secondary use? No. Anyway, I don't bring it up because there's an answer there, but because I think I think maybe, just maybe, we're taking the wrong approach.
Well, then it would become almost that we want to modify the environmental protection standards.
Yeah, and I don't know if we can.
So that's a
to
different
what degree we
bylaw.
can do
I mean-
that. That's a different
Right.
It's
bylaw.
not how
Right.
our zoning is set up.
But I think it makes sense to define a data center so that you can say the ones that we have now are okay, and the ones that are like this are not okay. So that's what we're essentially trying to do, is prevent.
But I think you do that through the tiered
Yeah,
mechanism.
exactly. Well, no, I
Based on
agree.
impact.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think
And
since
size.
that's the way, I
Based
think
on
that's,
impact. I mean, that's the key right there.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have to define the impacts and be
Right.
specific enough
Yeah.
on the impact and general enough on the use.
Mm-hmm.
That if something else came along and had exactly the same impact, we would regulate it in a similar way.
But it would still be a different use.
It would be a different use, but it would be the same pain in the neck for the
Yeah.
citizens of Chelmsford. And we probably ought to regulate it similarly.
I mean, I don't know, Evan, I'm just curious
Yeah.
what your thoughts are, because I would think to regulate the impacts, you would want to do that in the environmental, in something like the environmental protection standards, where you're just establishing some level of standards you're willing to tolerate.
I think the traditional approach is the best approach. Traditional definition, use table, and then if you want to go into regulating the size or the caps on these accessory infrastructure items, but I would leave it at that. I wouldn't create specialized environmental standards, because I think between the use table and the caps on the accessory infrastructure, anything over a certain threshold is going to require a special permit, which will then allow you to, via the new town meeting amendment, would allow you to delve into the environmental standards.
Well, consider that we already do. We have noise regulations. We now have some form of light regulations.
And as Evan
We
pointed
have
out, the
sewer
environmental,
regulations,
we've got the environmental trigger as well.
and we've
now.
got the environmental trigger, so.
I mean, I think what's
I
interesting.
I don't want to have a whole lot of these around town, let me tell you.
I don't think I'll get past.
I think what's interesting is if Somerville, I think, is contemplating 20,000,
Yeah.
which to me, not knowing much about this use, seems really small. But how many accessory infrastructure elements does 20,000 square feet need? Maybe that's what we need to know. But another approach is if the board says, well, the setback's 500 or 1,000 feet, we could map it, and there's probably very few areas in
Yeah.
town that would allow it. So I think it's like many uses, particularly where there's significant community sentiment towards it, distribution centers and so forth. You need to decide first whether you want it at all, and then take it from there. My final comment on this was, some of the literature indicates that these facilities target robust utility infrastructure, and then local electric companies. We don't have either of those.
Right.
In fact, if you're familiar with 129, many of the businesses have been forced to put in generators because the power goes out routinely.
I've been
So-
forced to put in a
so,
generator
you
because
know-
the power goes out.
These are items that we could take time and try to get that research if needed. it just may turn out that we're not really a destination for the traditional large-scale or medium-scale type of facilities. And the final comment is, I'm very interested on the existing uses. It sounds like they're a data center room within an existing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not even an accessory use, it's just a component of an existing business. But I wonder to what extent we have any that are principal uses that may be a really
Probably
small.
none.
Yeah.
Probably none.
Probably none, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to make sure that I don't want to generalize data centers too much in our definition and say we're banning them, because those server rooms can be, based on the definition, considered data centers. They're tiny and small, but they are,
Marketing themselves as data centers.
Yeah.
but they would be considered data centers by our definition if it's
Right.
too overly broad.
Correct.
So I want to be careful we're
Small.
not restricting
My-
those.
My final comment is on these, this slide here, backup generators, cooling facilities, towers. If you drive around 129, almost every building has these types of exterior infrastructure elements at this point. I only bring that to your attention because if you choose to cap, there's already granted, they're well buffered from residential properties, but if you drive around a lot of the buildings, you'll see many of these accessory infrastructure types. They're not excessive, obviously, but, they have plenty of these accessory infrastructures around the site for a variety of different purposes.
One other small thorn that I'd like to bring up is where we will be making assumptions about the technology.
Yes.
And,
Right, we're chasing
well,
a
I'll tell
moving
you right
target.
now, we're already down to 1.4 nanometer on on the chips and going down. We never thought we'd get there.
It's a moving target.
It's very much a moving target, and I think it would be not a particularly good idea to burn a particular technology into our zoning bylaws.
I have a quick general question. So there's no definition right now for a data center that we have, right? And at
Correct.
the last town meeting, what was the thing that got brought up that they shot down because there was no definition and they didn't want it? Is that what's gonna happen with this when it gets brought up, that it's gonna be?
Oh, I think people are, I don't think you'd have trouble passing something that very much limited data centers. I mean, that's the current hot button.
Okay, because I just, on that last meeting, when we brought up the thing for definition, they thought by having the definition, it was allowing it in town everywhere, when it was only like in a limited area, so.
What was it, like boarding
Was
house?
the boarding house.
That was the
Boarding
boarding house topic, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
no, it was
or
the bed and
Airbnb,
breakfast, was the bed and breakfast.
Bed and breakfast,
yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean,
But I think that was a different
Yeah,
situation.
somewhat different.
I think this is a hot topic. I think it's good to define it.
Yeah, they're not anti-definition, I don't think.
I think it's, I'm
Thinking
prepared
about
to have
having it?
two
it didn't
slides.
exist.
One where you think it's okay, and one prepared to put all no's in all our zoning, because
Well, I think it depends on what we decide to
Right.
do.
I'm just saying from a town meeting perspective, like, we may all agree that, like, may define it, may agree that certain areas might be worth it, but
I'm not sure I'm
wouldn't
not
be-
sure we're agreeing that is the case.
Well, okay, I'm just, I think it's
We're
good for
still
us,
exploring
I
at the
think it's good for
moment.
us to define
I don't
it.
think we're there yet.
I definitely think it's good for
I
us to
think the,
define
I think
it.
the major thing is that this isn't like, there's a very huge data center monster that's coming to town and we need to make sure it doesn't get here. It's the fact that it's a very broadly defined thing, some of which we have, some of which we may not want to discourage, and some of it we definitely would not want to have. So I think we do want to be, careful about how we define it, what kinds of restrictions we place. I think town meeting will understand
Mm-hmm.
that we're trying to not discourage businesses that are here, that are not doing any of the things we don't want. But it will be clear that the things that will do things we don't want will be discouraged. And I think they would understand that. I think they'd go for that.
I think it's quite analogous to the warehouse.
It is,
You know,
it's
to
very analogous to the
Chris's
warehouse.
citizen
Yeah.
petition.
And very
And it
analogous
was
to the
very
contractor
favorably
here.
received because people didn't want a big warehouse.
Yeah, I think it's a very similar situation with this.
But except for we're being proactive in this occasion, whereas we had one breathing down our necks.
Yeah. I think where it's just slightly different is in the warehouse typically always has high transportation
Traffic.
associated with it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, you could have something where it isn't generating the kinds of
Right.
results you don't like.
So the impact could be more subtle.
Yeah.
But
There could be a range in the impacts, whereas with
Yeah.
warehouses, the impact was pretty consistent.
It's not
Right.
traffic, it's other
It was-
issues, because I mean,
yeah.
sitting there and seeing what
Yeah.
Lowell's going through right now with it, it's just something to sort of sit there and think about, like, what if?
Yeah.
How do we wanna make sure we handle this? Should this wanna move over this way? Do we want it in like the neighborhood where Lowell's is currently, and that's becoming a problem?
Yeah.
All right, so for next steps, what are your thoughts for next
I
steps?
have a slide for next steps.
Yeah. He's way ahead of us.
It's right
look
there.
at that.
So.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
So we're kind of discussing the general approach, and then draft some sort of version of those different things, and then come back with some kind of I would say a very drafty kind of proposal as to how we would define it, what we would restrict, and how that would look.
Yeah, I think we should first
The
target
elements that Evan was mentioning.
tiering and
Yeah.
first come up with the gradations
Yeah.
of what we want to look at, and then decide, well, where, if anywhere, might the different tiers fit.
Yeah.
And the answer might be nowhere, or something in between, but I think that's kind of the first question,
Yeah.
to my mind.
Have you done any research on the types of cooling that they use for this type of infrastructure? Because I think I'm going to look into it more. I'm curious about it now
Yeah,
that I've
well, I have
reported
not.
a little bit. I was sitting here reading about it, and there's a couple of things that I'm curious about because I looked up the open versus the closed and the fact that they can use chemicals, not chemicals. So that part is interesting to me because that maybe is something that
Will you
we
do
concerned.
open-closed system 101 for us? Report back?
Joel should work together.
You know, if it's a closed system, we shouldn't be worrying about water. We should be worrying about heat.
Then heat, right.
I'm not sure about that
Energy
yet.
gets generated. No, I know, I agree.
All right, so how about at the next meeting, between now and the next meeting, June 10th, we think about how we want to potentially approach different parts of this. And then we'll have that discussion, get some structure down, and then after that meeting, we'll have one or two people go off and start drafting some definitions at least.
Yeah.
Okay. So homework is to do some research on the different aspects of data centers and
She's already started for us.
I also found the data center in Chelmsford.
all right. Anything else on that topic? All right, moving on to old business. 210 Boston Road.
What was this?
It's at the Little Peach.
This is the
The one,
little
the one with the
plaza.
restaurant?
The
like
Little
the
Peach.
coffee-
A coffee shop
You know the
thing.
Little Peach where there used to be a liquor store and used to be a train store? I don't know what's there now.
Beach in Westford too.
It's near Chelmsford Lumber.
Oh,
Across the street.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
On the way to Russell Mill.
Okay.
All right, so at the last meeting, we talked about different approaches. We talked about adding some type of coffee shop definition to the restaurants, which would be allowed in CA, which is that zone. We also talked about potentially looking at CB Light in this area in place of the CA zone. So After some discussion, we had thought maybe the CB Light would be a good option. So what I did is I put together the slides for what it would look like if we did CB Light in this area.
Isn't there affordable housing?
Yeah, it's on the,
Oh, okay.
The top one.
yeah, the first
Chris,
one.
do you know when you're mapping this, isn't there affordable housing like right there somewhere?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, the P has affordable housing, I think.
The what has affordable housing?
Oh, that's that's the affordable housing?
I believe so.
Yeah, I thought it was town-owned. Somewhere back there, I used to know someone who was looking into going in there.
It is town-owned. It's a P.
Yeah. I think it's this right here.
Is it CA?
No, it's the P.
If you click on it, it's give you the address.
I have that sign.
It's 206 Boston.
So where do we have CA? We don't have C, we only have 2 areas of CA? 3?
Four
Three.
areas.
Here, go to this one.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at all the
Oh.
areas of CA, because if we
Sorry.
change this to CB, then we go down to 3 areas of CA.
If you go to the next one, they're all CB Light.
Right, I'm back on your presentation.
Okay. I think there are 3 areas of CA we had talked about at the last meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes you kind of wonder what, like, do we retire CA, or?
Looking at what CA offers compared to some of the other commercial, it's not very different.
The setback's different? I think the setback.
Setbacks are different, yeah. But in terms of
Maybe
uses,
less.
Are the setbacks more restrictive or less restrictive?
I believe less.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that's true,
Less restrictive.
yeah.
Yeah. So it provides a little bit less protection. So if you go to, this is just general information on CB Light. Keep going, Evan. Keep going. So the current, we have another situation here where there are parcels that are half CA and half RB, or partial. So
How do we do that?
we would clean that up as well.
No one knows.
So in this situation, we have a couple public areas with the CA for the little plaza to the right, or the top. The CA underneath the white label box is, I believe, an auto store, auto something there. And then most of the CAs in that middle larger area is Chelmsford Lumber, and then a couple other businesses.
Where is Boston Road on here? Like,
It's right in the middle.
okay, sorry.
So
Hard time getting
if you go to the next slide, Evan,
Got it, no, you're right, it's,
based on what we talked about, all of those CAs would essentially become CB Light. And then we'd clean up the RB.
Is the lumberyard allowed in CB Light?
We don't have it specifically defined, so I believe, Evan, we had said it would go under general retail, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's probably retail.
Although it's interesting, there are 2 aspects to a lumberyard like that. One is the retail operation, which is the building, and the second is much more akin to a
Contractor.
contractor yard. and which they also have up there. And I know, because I've bought plenty of plywood.
Did you, in your presentation here, articulate why you felt rezoning to CB Light was the best approach?
No, we had talked about that last meeting.
I grabbed the wrong book, so I don't have the book that has CV Light in it.
None of them do.
None of them do.
Doesn't do, because
Oh.
online doesn't have it all.
We're working on that as we speak.
Oh.
This is online.
But, so my question, because I can't find the answer anywhere, and I can't remember, is, are there any restaurants allowed in CB Light?
CB Light allows restaurants.
By
Yes.
special permit?
I have the
Or
use
how-
table
Remember
here.
the mills, because the mill wanted something.
Right.
They said it would allow, like,
But like, how is it regulated? Is it by number of seats or anything
I
like that?
have it right here.
Oh, good.
There's just restaurant, and then there's fast food restaurants with drive-through, without drive-through, and over 2,500 square feet.
But
I
do we
wonder
allow,
if-
we don't allow drive-through in CB Light.
No.
No.
Can we make another category of restaurant?
We could.
I think we should do that. It could be like a bakery or a
Coffee shop?
coffee shop or like, I mean,
Just-
like
Or
all
just
the,
under a certain size or
Yeah.
under a certain
Yeah.
number of
number of
seats?
seats or square feet or both?
Yep.
Well, if we define it based on the type of restaurant, like coffee shop, that wouldn't take into account the pizza place that's already in that plaza. So it would have to be based on the size of the
size
restaurant.
Yeah,
of
which
seats
is
seems
fine.
appropriate.
I think size and seats.
So if you do that, then you don't, you just modify the use table,
Right,
Yeah,
right,
definition and use table,
yeah,
or just a definition with a footnote.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because as I think about it, if we introduce CB Light there, then we also introduce the possibility of the SAOT overlay.
No, you don't have
We
to.
don't? I thought it was in,
inherent? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's,
I thought,
It is?
yeah.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh,
Anywhere CB Light is, a SAOT overlay could occur.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think we want to do that.
I mean, it's currently applied to CA as well.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
SAOT?
Yeah, all
CA?
commercial zoning districts.
Oh, wow. Didn't realize that.
I have a question. Steal this. I have to take someone's.
Take it, Lynn.
If we did by size, would that take care of that fast casual issue too, of not having like a definition for fast
Silverware?
casual? So everything's by size? I mean, because
Think
that's
so.
something,
Not
right?
directly.
No.
The fast casual that's embedded in the 129 overlay
Oh,
right.
that's right.
has a minimum number of seats and I think square
Minimum or
footage.
maximum?
I'll tell you, I have it here.
is it the definition only in the overlay?
Yes.
And it doesn't require silverware, or it does?
It does require silverware.
It requires silverware, right?
Yeah, it's a, minimum of 3,500 square feet, minimum of 50 interior seats. So that's a sizable restaurant.
Yeah.
So at least we can make this a smaller size
I want to
restaurant.
make it like a boutique restaurant.
Yeah,
I
like
like
this,
that.
like that encompasses like your pizza places, your,
Anyone have a rough guesstimate on square footage?
Well, how big is like a pizza place? Like, they're usually
Like
small.
Joni's, I wonder how big Joni's is.
I can get that information for you for the next meeting.
Like definitely smaller
From
than like.
through the
maybe
Board
like
of Health, I'll
Jimmy's.
get all of the seating capacities for the restaurants, and then I'll be able to figure out the
Like the
sizes.
small
And what are they
little
putting
one.
in for seating
Coffee
capacity
shop.
over at, the-
Fields?
oh my God,
The Mills?
Independence, where they're putting in the,
Prime?
no.
It's a pizza place.
The pizza place that we just approved to put in with the Adele Daycare Center.
It's a sizable
Yeah,
tenant
that was
space.
How big is
pretty
that?
big.
coffee shop, ice cream place over by the fields.
Creamery,
Creamery?
Yeah.
it's not, maybe no more than
Small, right?
no more than 1,000 square feet. A good example is Cafe 12.
I was just gonna say that.
Cafe 12's in the center of town, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a great place, but the parking's terrible.
yeah, but I think that's a small,
Oh, is that the one that's by like the market area?
no,
That's another small one
this,
over there,
on this
isn't it?
side of the
Yeah.
square.
All right, so Evan, if you can get
Yeah.
us the size, square footage and seats information.
Like the old mill.
And then think about what zones we would want to allow it in. And then that would take care of this and other potential issues.
Mhm.
So everyone in agreement with that approach as
Yep.
opposed to
Yeah.
CB Light, now
Yeah.
that we've looked at it?
Are you not gonna change the zoning in those areas, even though they're crisscrossing each other?
Well, thanks for doing the work,
I'm like,
though.
could we
but-
clean
but
that
I
up
mean,
just
there
a
are-
little
We
bit?
could, we could still clean it up.
Yeah.
I think it should.
I think you definitely should clean that up so that you don't have CB or CA into an RB and make those a little bit neater.
And it sounds like CA is becoming archaic.
It kind of is, but.
So like, why not, you spent work on this, why not keep on going with the theme we're going? You can still do the other thing, but I mean, you're cleaning it up.
Well, the
Right.
problem is that I wouldn't want to, if we were gonna change this area, I would wanna change the entire area and not just one or two properties.
Mm-hmm.
And if we change it, then we run into problems potentially on the contractor yard issue,
You mean with the Concord lumber,
the Chelmsford lumber.
Chelmsford
You
lumber?
do, I mean, the last one you did was a sliver. You didn't touch all the properties along that area. You just did a chunk.
Well, anyone who's there is grandfathered in, anyway. For the
Yeah,
current
but if they
use.
wanted to, expansion or, there are a lot
Sell.
of things that would still limit them.
Retire.
I don't think Concord lumber's I don't think that would be a contractor yard.
Hey, go up there.
I mean,
It's-
I'm just saying, but as defined, a contractor is the one who's actually doing the work,
Doing the yarding.
not selling the material.
Yeah,
So they're retail, wholesale,
Mm.
they have some characteristics of outdoor operations, but so does Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart.
yeah,
They all have
they're really
outdoor-
it's
They got
commercial.
trucks, a
Yeah,
couple of big buildings, and piles of lumber.
Yeah, well,
That's okay. But if you have trucks, big buildings, and pile of dirt, it's not okay, you know? We should be searching for consistency here.
well, I don't know, what are you gonna do about the garden stores? With
Yeah,
the mulch?
very good point.
I mean,
Very
you're-
good point.
I feel like you're chasing down zebras. I feel like you're going down rabbit holes.
Well, no, I think I'm
It's
looking
a
in a different
diagnostic thing in medicine, like a zebra is an uncommon diagnosis. Some people always jump on the zebra diagnosis. Sorry.
So do
Is that
people think
after
we
they
should
Googled it, or?
pursue a CB Light in this area, or?
I think it might make sense.
I think we should. And I think we should clean up all the lines.
Yep.
And I think we should think about how we might change the use table to include small restaurants.
All
All
right,
of the above.
so,
Not all for the fall town meeting, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's what, like,
It is June.
well, I think the more immediate issue,
is the CB light
well, no, in this area, it's that restaurant.
restaurant, yeah. We will solve that by changing it to CB light.
No, we
No, we
change it,
wouldn't.
change the use table.
Okay, so then you're saying we should go down
Yeah,
the use
I think
table.
that's the quickest and easiest, I think.
But we've already done the work on this.
So hit
Fine,
We
both.
do
do it
both.
all. Do
So
it
let's
all.
do both.
Put a lot of work on ourselves.
It looks
All right.
so nice.
Chris already did most of the work on this.
So, all right, so we'll continue down this road for this. For this rezoning, is there any change that people would want to see, or is this okay?
Looks good.
Looks good.
I like it.
And then next meeting, we'll also talk about the restaurant size. Okay. All right, Anything else on Boston Road? All right. Gap analysis. Don't want to spend a ton of time on this. We did get, Evan had some edits, Joel had some edits. I added my edits to Joel's document, sent it all into the Board of Health, and they will incorporate all of the comments.
When I look at that document on here and it has all those little yellow boxes, that would have comments.
Yeah, if you hover over it.
So I couldn't get the hovering to work
I
on the
couldn't either.
online version, so what I did is I printed out a different version that has the comments embedded, and that's also
I think that's
attached.
highlighted.
Becky attached
Mine
that
has
one as
them.
well.
Yeah, I couldn't get,
You don't have this, you can't get this.
Yeah, that's the one I
get it to
printed.
work on that, 'cause I couldn't
The
get it to
other
work on
one
mine.
that's attached,
Yeah, see, I have the same problem.
that has EB, the document that says EB edits, that's Evan's version with the comments.
The green one?
That's
Yes.
not working.
No, not the green one, the one above it.
They both say EB edits,
Yeah, we
And
don't-
it doesn't end with the comments.
Oh, this one,
The
yeah.
one above it I couldn't get to work.
but yeah, I couldn't get either one of them to work.
Yeah, I couldn't get it to hover, so I was able to print it out in a way that printed the comments too,
Yeah.
so.
Yep, okay, I see what you're
Those
saying.
two documents are the same, just one has comments that are accessible to some people.
And then the yellow one is Joel and Chris's comments.
Yeah,
'Cause I can see
What are the
red.
red ones in the margin?
Those are comments.
those are Evan's
Joel and-
comments.
Okay, well, where are yours and
The
and
other document,
that we can't get into? I can.
No.
s-
there are three documents.
Oh,
There's the one that Evan is pointing at right now, that is the one that
Oh,
has
so yours
Joel
is
and my
just
comments.
questions in it.
Oh,
The green one is the one that I printed with Evan's comments visible. And
Which are
then
red on the margin.
Red on the margin.
unhighlighted one is Evan's with the yellow
Which
comment.
we couldn't
Which we
open the
can't
comment thing.
Which
open.
some people can, some people
Yeah,
can't,
I
so.
wasn't able to on other devices I was on.
So
I
you're-
still
so
don't know
you're-
where the one is that has everyone's comments.
That's.
None of them have
So
So that's
everyone's.
just this where they put some notes in and stuff.
Okay.
The bottom one is just separate. You have to go
Bless
look
you.
at the document too.
Yeah.
Those are general comments and notes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, managed growth strategy.
No updates.
Well, other
Yeah,
than that
and I
you're
think
providing your
at this
funding
point, we're
grant.
kind of waiting on these guys to, come up with, first of all, a better pitch for money.
Yeah, and they took a lot of input, and then
Right.
also too, they suggested a new name, preferred
Yes.
development planning, so that it doesn't sound like so limiting. I
Yes.
thought that might be better for
I
the
thought that was
grant.
not a bad
Yeah.
idea, actually. But I don't think we're gonna hear much from them until September, October.
I was there also, and I thought it was interesting to hear the discussion. It sounds like they're looking for a simulation to provide sort of a lot of results, and that simulation is Urban Sim. And since modeling and simulation is something I've done for a long, long time, I was gonna look into it to see.
Yeah.
Because those things can always be very sensitive about the inputs, and particularly about what kinds of assumptions you make about the inputs that you give it. So I was interested to see that too, because I think there's gonna be some interpretation that's involved that then could impact the results of it. So you have to have a good understanding, looking at your results, what it was that you were assuming when you put into it. So I'll probably look at that too. But it was a very good meeting. I thought NIMCOG's doing a great job.
Yeah. I like those guys.
Mr. Chairman, while we're on that subject, could I
Yep.
just talk about my work on, or future work on the committee? So, as many of you know, I began this week with Paul's departure and retirement, serving as acting town manager, and also still doing the finance director duties. And so one of the main differences, as I kind of guessed, with serving as town manager is much different than finance director. One of the main differences is a lot of my day is devoted to formal meetings, either for various things, and then also meeting with department heads on various issues. So what I'm trying to say is, in a roundabout way, is since a lot of my day now is consumed with other things, I'm going to need to step back from the managed growth task force And I just wanted to share that with everyone on the board, with Evan. I enjoyed my time. I think it's a very interesting group. I'm, reluctant to do that. I think it's a very important task force or committee for the town, but I just feel at this time that I just do not have the time to devote to it. So, I can in the future provide written notice to you and the clerk, but I just wanted to share that with everybody, my reasons for. And
Thank you. I appreciate your time on
Yeah,
on that
and you're
group.
likely to remain connected with it anyway,
Yeah.
with your different role,
yes,
so.
just a different way.
So, John did mention this to me before the meeting. So one of the things I was thinking about is, instead of trying to appoint a new chair, since we have co-chairs, would you be willing to
Absolutely.
take it over?
Well, Friday is my last day of work.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
all of a sudden, I have more time to use that. So yes, I'll be more than happy to do
Okay.
that.
All right. So that will keep some consistency there. And then I think I would like to see a second planning board member on the Managed Growth Strategy Task Force as well. Not necessarily to co-chair, like I said, but to have an additional planning board member on there to have the two, like we had discussed.
I'll put that on the next agenda.
Yeah.
For a formal vote.
Yep.
When does it meet?
It's a bit ad hoc.
Yeah,
It's been on
periodically,
Thursdays
yeah.
typically. But again, I don't think we're gonna see another meeting until September, October.
I think there'll be one in the summer.
You think we're gonna have one
Yeah,
summer
The
meeting?
committee has some homework to do,
Yeah, that's true.
engage with the water and sewer departments. But then it'll be back in September, October.
Okay. Well, sometime next week, I'll wander into your office and pick up
Well,
details.
I'll put that on the next agenda for
Okay.
the vote.
Okay. So between now and then, think about whether or not you'd be willing to serve on that task force. And if you are willing, let me and Evan know prior to the meeting. Okay. Thank you. Anything else on managed growth? All right, now we get into the continuing through the other zoning articles. I'm not going to continue going through the change tracking. That's just for everyone's awareness of what we're working on to keep track of it. I will continue to keep versioning that document as we go through. I'm going to skip down to the River Neck. Just as a reminder, we will be discussing that again on June 10th. Anita, are
I'm
you?
making edits, I was working on it today.
Okay.
I might send it to you, just to look at, to make sure I've captured all the
Yep.
changes.
Okay. So send it to me as soon as you can, and then we'll get it out to people ahead of time. And then Evan has posted the links on the town website and then the neighbor information has gone out already. So people are starting to talk.
I've
About
gotten
it?
some phone calls with some people that are A, not happy, and B, maybe a bit confused. So I think to the extent that we're able to keep the conversation and the information flowing, that will be,
Yes.
Yep. And that will be the first meeting with the informal neighborhood meeting on June 10th. But Evan has added all of that information to the town website. All right. Contractor yard updates. So, you had the version 2 to look at since the last meeting. Version 3, what I did is I worked with Evan to try and break it apart. The way it was initially structured at the beginning, it was going to essentially fit into a new zoning chapter. And we didn't necessarily want to do that. We wanted to try and put it into the different pieces. So what I did is I broke it out a little bit more into this version 3. I added people's comments that they've been giving me to this document, made changes through the document as people had suggested. All of the changes have been tracked, so we can keep track of things. And what I'm hoping to do tonight is quickly just go through the structure of how it might be set up, and then also talk through the comments that people have in the margin as well. All right, so the first section would be the definition. We would delete the old two definitions and then replace it with these definitions. We would have a general use definition, and then we would have 3 sub-use definitions. The first is essentially the 3 different tiers. Each one of them has descriptions about the what weight vehicles might be allowed, potential numbers. It describes the storage of equipment and materials. The first one also describes the multi-tenant condominium facilities that we see a lot of these contractors in. And then each tier also gives examples as well. Mike, you had a comment in here about the enclosure of materials. So your comment was about that enclosure would provide some mitigation to impact. 100% agree with that. But one of the things we wanted to avoid in the way that this is tiered is using the enclosure to bring down to a different tier. So for example,
I see what you mean.
yeah, so we didn't want a tier 3 contractor yard
To turn himself into a tier 2 by putting up a building.
exactly,
Yeah.
and then putting everything into the building.
Yeah.
So that was the intent here, that you can mitigate impacts with the building, but the building itself won't decrease your tier.
Okay.
You would still be considered the tier that you should be.
Yep.
Based on the equipment.
Yeah, based on all
Yeah.
of these things, and
Okay.
just putting it inside
All right.
wouldn't reduce your tier.
Oh, that's fair enough.
This might be a stupid request, but I would love, I'm having difficulty visualizing these various tiers. Like, do we have a poster child for, like, for what, anything that is in our, that we could go look at and think about, like, this is kind of typical tier 1?
We have potential vehicle descriptions
No, I
based on
know,
the
from last
classes,
time
but
we said- yeah.
that's about it.
What if you throw it in AI and ask it to create a visual representation of each tier?
Yeah,
I don't know. They
hallucinate
do
on you.
everything nowadays.
Yeah, there's so many,
ChatGPT.
I mean, I could try and see what it spits
I'm
out,
curious
but
if
there's
it-
so many variables in these.
I'm just having a hard time.
I'll try and
The
see.
pity of it is, to most normal humans looking at a contractor yard, the aesthetic aspects of how neatly the piles are piled is probably gonna make more difference than how big the piles are. You know, it's just the way people are.
Well, that's why we're trying to focus more on,
Yeah.
less about the yard and more about the
The kinds of
use
trucks that
and
are
the
coming in
impacts.
and loading up their
Yeah.
trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, are they
'cause-
nicely
and
painted
the-
or are they rusty?
Right, and
No,
the
are
way
they
you've defined it,
giant and rumbling the whole street?
Yeah, that's
right, and the way
that's
you've,
what will be discussed. Yeah.
and the way you've defined it, there's a big difference between vans and pickups in my mind, or excavators,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
large
Right.
paving machines.
Boom, boom, boom,
That's-
boom, boom.
Yeah, so the first sub-use wouldn't have any of that additional equipment. No heavy commercial vehicles and no heavy equipment. And we define those down below as well. It's essentially the inside office condominiums for contractors.
Like the beehive idea.
Yeah, yep.
What
And
would
other
Chelmsford
service-based
lumber be?
operations. What's that?
What would Chelmsford lumber be?
Retail.
Retail.
It's retail, but what if they were about that size and not a retail?
But they, what do you mean?
What if they split the business and the back half was the contractor yard and the front half was the retail and they happen not to belong to the
But
same
again,
people?
it's not
Yeah.
about
Right.
most of this is not about the storage of materials.
But I think she,
There's one piece of that.
I think she's asking because she's trying to visualize what these
Like
look like. So what
scale.
would that scale of that type of property be?
Well, that'd be hard because in both tier 2 and 3, you have outdoor materials being stored. But the difference is that tier 3, we would have the heavy landscaping, excavation type vehicles, which you don't have in a Chelmsford lumber. Tier 2, you have one or two pieces, so maybe a Chelmsford lumber would have a forklift or two.
Yeah, that's what they've got,
Um,
actually.
So
mean,
they
that's a good
might be
differentiation.
more
Yeah.
of a tier 2.
Yeah, I think that's a good differentiation. So
Yeah.
2 pieces of heavy equipment is your tier 2, and more than that is basically tier 3.
Yeah,
Which is interesting though, because how does that get regulated for future use? Like, when they come here and they bring you their plan, and they're saying they have 2 parking spaces for pieces of heavy equipment, is it something that then would come back to, somebody alerts them, oh, they have like 4? And then now their tiers changed?
Well, parking is also addressed down further.
Yeah.
There are specific parking requirements for each tier.
But how do you regulate the heavy equipment number?
The only system we've got at this point is
The building
somebody,
inspector.
somebody complains
Complains
to the
to
building
the
So
building
inspector.
here it
inspector.
says storage or use of, yeah, somebody would have to complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking,
Yep.
deciding which mic I'm yelling into.
Take them all, both of them.
So the tier 2 talks through the commercial vehicles. I do agree with you, Evan, on that comment that we need to clarify the heavy commercial vehicles a little bit more. It's not 100% consistent, so we'll have to figure that out and refine that a little bit.
so the only one that has on-site fuel storage is 3.
Yeah.
I love small amounts or something.
And do we have to have on-site fuel storage?
That kind of big use probably would want it. I mean, if they got 10 big diesels, they'll want a 300-gallon tank.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole lot easier than driving down to the local gas station every day with your entire parade of heavy equipment and filling them up.
Amazon does it with all their vehicles.
Yeah, it's true.
They go to gas stations.
And then we talk about defining commercial vehicles, heavy commercial vehicles, and heavy equipment. And Mike, your comment about minimum vehicle weight for the
Yeah.
heavy equipment is a good one. I don't have enough expertise in those.
I don't either, but somebody must.
I feel like, didn't we
What's the
have
question?
the pictures that we had last
Yeah,
time?
we had pictures.
They had weights, I think.
Yeah, we had one that had weights.
For heavy equipment,
Yes.
Yeah.
excavators, bulldozers, okay. I'll see if we can dig that out.
Mike, are the agricultural vehicles registered?
They may or may not be. Often they aren't. Mine aren't.
If they are registered, do they have a commercial plate or some other
They're
plate?
likely to have a farm plate.
Farm plate.
So
I was
maybe a
driving behind Caroline Parley.
maybe the
Yeah, she's got a
definition of-
farm plate.
Yeah.
Maybe the commercial vehicle definition needs to say commercially registered.
That takes care of some of them.
No, I
But,
mean, that would
yeah.
exclude ag.
It would exclude ag, but it might also exclude stuff that goes onto a trailer I mean, you can use the same kind of equipment in ag as you use for just general landscaping, you know, a front-end loader with a backhoe on the back. And whether it's registered or not is strictly a matter of whether you plan to drive it on the street.
What's your concern with your comment? Your neighbor likely to try to characterize a 40 horsepower tractor with a front-end loader as an excavator.
Yeah,
If it's being operated by an agricultural use,
right.
then they're not in the contracting business. They're an ag use.
Yeah, but it is conceivable that one could register an agricultural tractor with commercial plates. I
Agreed,
don't think it's
agreed.
done very much.
Agreed, but the use wouldn't be classified as an ag use under our zoning.
Yeah, if you classify it as an ag use, and maybe that clears the problem out.
I think you're concerned that someone tries to mix, because they're aggrieved, that they're trying to convince,
Yeah, they say,
Zoning
my
officer.
neighbor's got a tractor with a front-end loader on it.
right.
But
You
if
know,
they're
this
not,
must be a
I
contractor.
think we're saying is, yes, your neighbor does, but
Yeah.
he's an agricultural
Right.
use.
or residential use.
Yeah.
Or residential
Not-
use.
Not
even, yeah, there's some-
contracting under our
Yeah.
definitions.
Yeah,
So yeah, that would kind of,
but those are where the tricky corners are.
yeah, but one of the
Yeah.
things is that yeah. But it's really based on the use. So there, if it's an agricultural or residential use, you're obviously not a contractor.
What would Henry Parlee's use be? He's got a farm,
Agriculture.
it's agriculture, but
What's the question?
but he probably moves other things with his big Massey Ferguson. I
He's
mean,
agriculture, but he's an
I
agriculture.
s-
He's a farmer.
He's a farmer. It's not
I think
agriculture.
I would agree, but,
Not-
but.
Here we go on these
the
zebras
notion-
again.
For
Yeah.
example, he was sharing a whole lot of his space with the fellows that were in here earlier on, and was that agricultural? I don't know. I was just, there's fuzz there, yeah, is what I'm trying to say. Not that I'm trying to resolve the question, but you're not always gonna get a clear division between agricultural and commercial.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. You're allowed.
Deirdre has declared we've talked enough.
All right.
I wasn't being subtle. I actually just yawned.
The next piece of this is the use table. So for the first tier, it would be accessory use in residential. And then for the CB Light, commercial districts, and then IA would be allowed. For the moderate, it would be no for residential, no for CB Light,
Yeah.
special permit, and then yes for IA. And heavy would only be allowed in IA. And this is kind of aligned with how we're aiming for the CB Light to be that buffer.
It's pretty good.
Parking, the parking is really about, because this is not a customer-based business, it's really about the employees, and for number one, and for tiers 2 and 3, it's about enough spaces for the equipment
I like that.
and the
Yeah.
fleet. And then parking space dimensions also related to the size and shape of the equipment and vehicles, and not for passenger vehicles. Other things we may want to think about is in here a definition of a fleet. I did some research based on some other work that the DPW has done on prior projects. US DOT, they define their internal fleet as 15 or more vehicles, but it's not used for their regulations. Some fleet software considers a fleet 2 or more vehicles. Some insurance companies consider fleet 5 or more vehicles. If you look at towns and what you see in patterns, accessory or residential use allows typically 1 commercial vehicle for the home use. If you're seeing 2 or 3, that's kind of borderline contractor. 4 to 6 vehicles is more considered a contractor yard and fleet. And then 7 plus, a lot of places consider industrial.
I think like 3 or more is not residential.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's typical of what a lot of the zoning that I found.
Like if Mighty
Considers.
Maid decided to buy the house next door and park their Mighty Maid car, little sedans, I wouldn't like that.
Yeah, so the accessory use would be more like a single vehicle. The tier 1 would probably be 2 to 6. And then the tiers 2 and 3 may be something like 7 plus,
Maybe 2 to 5.
something like
What
that.
are we referring to right now?
The number of vehicles in a fleet,
Did you look up the FMSCA fleet regulation?
yeah.
So I think for, the reason that a fleet initially came up is that it's tied to the land use with a higher pollutant
Yeah.
through stormwater.
Okay.
For purposes of just contractor regulation, I don't think we need to regulate and define fleet. I think you've kind of done that.
Yeah,
But at some point, for all other uses tied to stormwater, we may want to define.
yeah, I agree, but that's why I wanted to start talking about it
Yeah.
now to keep it aligned with this. Because if we define here, because we start talking about numbers of vehicles here, and I want to make sure that what we do end up doing here is kind of aligned with the direction we would go for fleet, so that they're not out of whack.
Yeah. Well, I'll just bring up my comment 5.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to bring this one up.
Setting aside, a definition of fleet related to stormwater, we do have more than a handful of well-known, well-established contractor-type businesses that have more than 10 commercial vehicles. Otherwise, they would comply with Tier 1. So I think you just need to be cognizant of that kind of situation. Is that truly your intent to, lump or treat 10 or more commercial vehicles in and of itself as a Tier 2? Even though you may not have any exterior operations?
So maybe make that planning board.
I don't know, I just bring it to your attention.
What zones are those in?
The one I'm referring to is on Stedman Street, north of the highway. That's IA, currently IA.
Plumbing.
If you leave it as is, it becomes pre-existing non-conforming.
But even if those did become a tier 2, because part of the reason why there's that piece in tier 2 is because of potential traffic impacts and parking impacts. If you have 10 vehicles, you likely have 10 or more employees that also need parking.
Understood. But how is that, just talking shop here, how is that any different than a multi-tenanted Tier 1? Gene Ave, behind Walmart, is a multi-tenanted condo building, essentially with maybe 10 or 20 Tier 1s, compared to one large business that has a larger fleet, but no exterior operations.
So how do you think we should handle that? Maybe take it under advisement until the next meeting?
Yeah, I would just think about it, and maybe when you're driving around town, kind of just, give a look-see.
But Evan, one of the things in here is that in multi-tenant or contractor condominium
Yeah,
facilities,
individually.
they're classified individually.
Right, what I'm saying is, Gene Ave, all of those individual tenant spaces would likely be tier ones.
Right.
But collectively, to your point, collectively, they generate more traffic.
You mean like where the physical therapy is and stuff?
At the end of Gene Ave, behind the self-storage facility.
Yeah.
Right, but Evan, what I'm saying is that
Physical therapist
in,
is-
in that case, that,
You have a
if
food
you look at the use table and where it's located, that type of Gene Ave scenario would likely not be allowed in, or it would be allowed in most of our areas. And the traffic impact would be analyzed based on the building and the parking requirements.
No, all I'm saying is that if you take Gene Ave and you have 10 individual tier ones, and you compare that
He's
with
talking about this.
one large company that took all of Gene Ave,
I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
the amount of trucks would likely be roughly the same. The impacts,
be what he's
the
talking about.
operation, the scope and scale would likely be the same. As currently drafted, it's allowing the individual condos
But not the
to be
big
tier
collective.
one by right. But if one company bought all of them, they have more than 10 commercial vehicles.
Gene
So
Ave to
by
get-
definition, by default, they automatically are not a tier one, they're not a by right. But yet the impacts collectively in totality are likely the same. If you have, 10 individual contractor condos or one large business that takes them all.
And I see your point, and I'm not sure I would fix
this
it
is
the
just-
way that you're
I'm
suggesting.
I'm not
I
how you-
would go the other way and say that a condo development in total would be considered a tier two.
Does it say that?
Not yet,
Extend it to your
Yeah.
but I think I get what your point is that the way it's written,
Yes. Okay.
both of those are the same. I think the intent is that individually, each of those bays in the condo are tier ones, but collectively, it would be considered a tier
So
two
if it were new construction, it'd be a tier two.
based on the collective
Yes,
impact.
okay.
Yes.
The ones that are already up and running is what I was trying to interpret.
But if that business went out on its own into a separate standalone business, it would still be a tier one. So if it's inside a condo unit or
Yeah.
external,
Yeah.
it'd still be a tier one. But the condo development in total would be a tier two.
Upon initial construction.
Yeah.
Once the planning board approves it, then the building commissioner is looking at it as an individual tenants as they come and go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the way ITE handles that is that they make it as a function of the size, the square footage.
Yeah.
So, do we want to do something similar? Because that would solve the problem too. Because essentially what you're saying is you have so many vehicles per certain size, then if you buy them all, do you have all that space, so you're allowed more? So that would be the equivalent of it. That's how ITE addresses that.
I think
For,
give
for
them
the traffic impact.
some- Yeah, I think give that some thought.
Question.
Because you could have I think those average about 2,500 square feet. They usually have a mezzanine and so forth. But there's not a clear line between the square footage and number of trucks. Because you
Right.
could, right?
Right, right. I mean, ITE has an estimate, but they sort of have it all smushed
Yeah,
together,
yeah,
so.
yeah. All right, we'll keep giving it some
Okay.
thought.
All right.
All right. So between now and next meeting, take a look at these, and then we'll have further refinements. If you have further additions or suggestions, let me know, and I will,
To this, to version 3?
yeah,
Okay.
to version 3, and then I will update it. So the sooner you can give me comments and updates, the sooner I can get the next version out for us to look at for the next meeting. All right.
Thank you, it's a lot of work.
All right. I think that's it for zoning.
Meeting minutes?
Yes, meeting minutes, May 13th. Has everyone read it? I will take a motion.
I would move that we approve the meeting minutes of May 13th.
Motion by Mike,
Second?
second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, next meeting date is June 10th. We have Lady Slipper, we have more of the zoning discussions, and then we have the River Neck
Yeah.
discussion
With the neighborhood.
Is that the first
with the
public hearing?
neighbors. Yeah,
Yep.
not the public hearing, just an informal,
Informal discussion with them.
yeah.
What time do you want to start that meeting? I think the property owner or butter notification said 7 PM. The real question is, what time do you want to do
Lady slip,
Lady Slipper?
start then at 6:30?
Yeah, if we can start at 6:30, get them done.
Missed out that it's-
I think that's gonna finish in, well, I guess we don't have to do the other thing right at 7.
We
right?
can do it 7, that way
Yeah.
it's only
Yeah, we can do it
7:30.
after 7:30.
Yeah. It gives-
6:30 start time?
Yeah, 6:30 start.
It's okay if we get to it later than the
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
on the thing.
Yeah.
Gives them time to all get here.
That is, if they're ready by June 10th,
Right.
they may ask for a
Very
continuance.
well, yep.
Yeah.
And everyone will be here, June 10th?
Okay.
And what about June 24th? Everyone will be here?
Yep.
June 24th,
I believe so.
I won't be here.
I have another meeting at 6, but it's virtual. I could probably bow out of it by 7.
Which date?
The 24th.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to start earlier than 7. if
Yeah,
that
June
would work.
24th, we'll do 7 o'clock.
Okay.
I might dial in.
Okay. Okay. So 6:30 on June 10th, 7 o'clock on June 24th. June 10th, we will start with Lady Slipper at 6:30, the River Neck discussion at 7, and then we'll continue through other zoning after that. I will take a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Motion
Second.
by Deirdre, second by Anita, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.